Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session on AI-powered industries. I'm Vijay Vaitheeswaran. I'm the Energy and Climate Innovation Editor for The Economist. It's my great pleasure here to be your immoderate moderator today for our session, and to have such a distinguished panel joining us. I'll introduce them in just a moment. But the topic, you really can't swing a cat these days without hitting an AI session or debate or discussion, but we promise you this will take you further than the ones you've been to. That's the aspiration I've set for my experts, to produce some breakthrough insights today. We all know something of a golden age is coming, a golden age of innovation that's going to be enabled by AI. Now, this is not the first time in human history, right? There have been waves periodically. We can look back to the great Victorian age of invention, for example, nearly a couple of centuries ago, where much of modern chemistry, modern science was invented, often by individuals at that time, working collectively or in competition with each other. But much of the basis of the modern 20th century advances, the internal combustion engine, the modern biology, were invented at a time of extraordinary ferment in just a couple of decades that took 100 years to unpack and unfold the value that was created by the basic science. It takes decades sometimes to develop the industries or the technologies like the power grid or the nexus of the internal combustion engine and gasoline, the energy industry that powered a 20th century of mobility, for example. So we're at that early stage where the opportunities will be ahead of us, the opportunities to seize, but as well, false leads and dead ends as well. We'll find that out as well. There are pitfalls aplenty. If AI lives up to the potential that's being investigated today, there are estimates that we could see $2 to $4 trillion additionally in global corporate profits that are added. Potentially could deliver the biggest impact in some sectors like banking or high tech, life sciences. We'll talk about what our experts at the table think about this. And the ways that it might raise productivity have been highlighted by analysts, whether it's interacting with customers or creating content, which of course as a content creator, I'm very much against that particular application. I think we should put that on the side. But nevertheless, software, code, natural language applications, we'll hear much more about this. So dozens of potential applications, but as well, there are pitfalls. We'll hear about those as well along the way. In this particular session, we're going to also try to focus in a little bit with specifics, get down from the 30,000-foot level. Let me introduce our panelists who will get us going here. To my immediate left, Abdulla Fakhro, who is the Minister of Industry and Commerce in Bahrain. We have Jean-Pascal Tricoire, who's the chairman of Schneider Electric. We have Cheryl, co-founder and chief executive officer of Bota Biosciences. We have Robert Falck, founder and CEO of Einride, and Simon Freakley, who's CEO of AlixPartners. Give them a nice round of applause to welcome them, get them warmed up. Thank you. And we're off to the races. Minister, let me start with you. Sure. You have thought deeply about this topic in your country. You've already undergone something of a transformation and diversification of the economy, of course, from energy into services, and now you're looking at the opportunity that's being presented by AI. Can you give us your governmental perspective on how you're looking at this opportunity?
Sure, Vijay, thank you firstly for having me here. As you mentioned, Vijay, the government of Bahrain is on its way to being a properly diversified economy. So over the past 20 years, the government of Bahrain has diversified away from the oil and gas sector into sectors which are service-based sectors. About 20 years ago, oil and gas sector made up above 40% of contribution to GDP, and today it's below 18%. And it's no longer the #1 contributor to GDP, financial services is. So financial services as well as other service-based sectors, such as the logistics, the ICT sector, are playing a more and more important role when it comes to contribution to GDP. And it's these sectors which are well placed to benefit from the AI kind of revolution. So services such as financial services, insurance, legal services, healthcare, cybersecurity are really at the top of our kind of priority list at the government. So AI will do things faster for these sectors, productivity in these sectors will go up considerably. And as a result, of course, contribution to GDP in turn will go up. But as a government, I think some of our priorities really have been investing in the technology infrastructure to allow businesses to benefit from this wave. And
these are back-end infrastructure investments?
Absolutely, back-end infrastructure investments. And when we see that the return on these investments are significantly higher than other infrastructure investments, there is, of course, a socio-economical return. And also, we've realized that the importance of being quick to respond when it comes to new technologies and new industries. It's critical that we don't over-regulate, especially when it comes to, for example, AI. But at the same time, because, of course, too much regulation can limit creativity and innovation, but at the same time, keep our finger on the pulse and be aware of what's happening so that we can react quickly to opportunities, but threats as well.
So what's an example of an area of regulation where you have taken some steps? I imagine there's a debate about how far to go with data privacy and nationalization versus global data.
Yeah, so what we did, an example, for example, is we had a cloud-first policy in the government of Bahrain, and now over 90% of all government data is on a cloud, and services are all cloud-based. Bahrain introduced the first data jurisdiction law, which gives sovereign treatment to data. So basically, data stored in Bahrain is treated similar to how an embassy would be treated.
I see.
As only a court in the nation of origin will be able to access that data. And as a result, of course, we saw a lot of demand from companies such as AWS, who decided to set up their first hyperscale data center in Bahrain as a result, of course.
The inexpensive energy had nothing to do with it?
No, I don't think so.
Not at all. No. Okay, all right. Well,
no, it was, and we were able to introduce this jurisdiction, this sort of regulation very quickly. Within a few months, which is really what we see as the opportunity.
So agility matters.
Agility is that's it. Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Those are some great examples. Thank you. Thanks for setting us up. Now let's start with an industry perspective. Then, Jean-Pascal, let's turn to you. Your company, our audience will know, has a deep experience with many customers in energy management. You look across sectors, and so. What do you see when we ask this question about the most promising industrial applications as well as maybe some of the challenges? Where do you see the opportunity set?
I would say probably all applications. AI is a big disruptor, but you have to put inside a wider range of technologies or transitions which are happening at the moment. But we're impacted as a company. We are the partner of many companies in the field of digitization on energy transition. That's what we do, decarbonization of their processes. And when you look at AI, it's impacting us in two ways. And it's a major disruptor. Number one, we are the biggest supplier of energy solutions to data centers. And data centers are booming because of AI. When you change a CPU by a GPU, that energy need is much bigger, right? And today, we started with 0% of our turnover 15 years ago in data centers. Today, it's 20% of our total turnover, $8 billion of turnover that we do every day supplying those energy solutions to hyperscalers, data centers, a lot of them in Saudi Arabia, for instance, as we speak. But at the same time, this digitization is the biggest disruptor to efficiency, the biggest provider to efficiency in smart buildings, smart manufacturing, smart cities, and it brings much more efficiency and much more savings than the consumption which is coming from data centers. So
you actually do believe that it's not just a double-edged sword, cuts both ways. You think one side of that ledger is stronger, the efficiency side?
Yeah, I don't believe. We are doing it every day with our customers, right?
Okay, good to hear. Yeah.
So when you put, it's not AI in itself. You have to put it together with other other technology transitions. IoT, which is connecting everything, that generating data, big data, which allows you to store a lot of data and work on it. And then software, digital twin on AI that you can only build meaningfully because you've built the rest. Now, in the industrial world, all the customers in this room will recognize that there is no point to do AI if you cannot feed back to the physical world. You cannot improve an industrial process if your machines are not reacting to the insights of AI.
So you need sort of those rapid innovation loops.
Yeah, and all of these are fitting. The more products are connected, the more they generate data. Your AI is as good as the best of your data. This data needs to be structured, and we at Schneider have developed, I would say, the most adopted database for industrial infrastructure, but on industry. But the benefits are in all directions. Like it's energy efficiency, it's productivity, it's worker safety when you can give insights to your worker with augmented reality or train them without risk because of virtual reality. It's optimizing everything on the shop floor, at the control level, at the level of your factory, across your factories, across your supply chain.
Right.
We use also AI to optimize the flows with our larger ecosystem. So it's absolutely vital that you build that quality of data and then build the algorithm on the capacities on the data. And the best of results you can attain is when you go beyond your own company and you reach out to what we call the scope 3 on all the people, on the actors. So benefits everywhere, but it's not only AI for AI, it's AI connected to the physical world, and it goes into much bigger loop of digitization. And all of this is happening as we speak. So the train is leaving from different stations, and we better board on it.
So, and you're on board all these trains, as it sounds like, and you're certainly giving us a sense of that dynamism of the industries you're working with. Although I'm reminded by your point about the need to connect with real data, quality data, the old adage, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So you need to have constant updating and connection with updated information. That's a very optimistic perspective we've been given. We'll dig into that a little bit more. But as you noticed, my distinguished speaker would not select one or two industries to say they're most likely to see the early applications. I want to dig into a case study where I think we can turn to our next speaker, Cheryl. I think you do have a favorite sector where you'd like to see AI have a big impact or already beginning to see it. Can you tell us about the sector you work in?
Yes, I'm trained as a biomedical engineer. And then what Bota does is that we try to accelerate the shifts from the biological design to scale-up manufacturing and to produce sustainable goods. So what we do is that we engineer microbes so it can make chemicals. But being able to engineer the microbes very efficiently, that takes a lot of human intelligence in the past. And then there's a lot of unpredictability involved. And then what we can see is really, we first started the generation of biotechnology with the intersection with the information technology. And then now is to take it to the next level and then really to embrace what AI can contribute to the field. And then for us, the genome language is the language of nature, ATCG, but how much do we truly understand it? And then for the past 2 decades, people have tried, accumulated a lot of data from the Human Genome Project, but that's from human. But there's a lot of organisms that exist in nature, right? But how does that genotype link to the phenotype of the function of the proteins of the organism that enabled certain behavior? That's a big gap. And then I think then, in the next portion, I think all the biologists will turn into information technologists. And then we have to embrace the new technology to enable newer discovery. I think it's the AI for science. It's in a sector where we hope AI doesn't just generate things that exist for us, but able to discover things that we don't know. And I think that's what's intriguing for us in this.
So you sketched out a vision of convergence, really, is what I'm hearing, between the biological world and, in this case, the IT or technological world, very much happening. And you see the potential for accelerating discovery, presumably. Is it drug discovery we're looking at, bioprospecting, or do you see this with health systems data, for example? One could go a lot of different directions here, too. Where do you see some of the promising applications?
I think it's already happening in the whole bioscience industry, from drug discovery all the way to health science data. For the sector we're in is called industrial biotechnology. And then one of the components involved is like enzyme designs. You have enzymes that works in nature. You get it from a biodiversity search. But how can you increase the efficiency of that under certain industrial settings with the temperature, with the pH, and then able to predict the sequence of the enzyme using AIs and with computation biology is where we can make a difference. We already see there's the acceleration of at least 5 to 10-fold from what we can do just from the scientists alone. So every day, I think we're working with an AI companion right now.
Do you have access to all the data you need? There has been a bit of a movement towards open access, open science, open publishing even of scientific reports, but a lot of data is still held behind silos. Am I right?
Yes, yes, definitely. And it's biologist is like a tourist for keeping the data consistently.
Data hoarders, right?
Exactly.
Cupboards full of your data.
Yeah. And it's actually, I think it's the digitalization that will make a difference, just like in the energy sector, it's the same. So it's how we're able to generate data more efficiently and then able to keep high fidelity data that's able to share across the board. I think that would be really make a difference in the future. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Robert, you come from another industry as well, vertical, innovative startup, mobility, autonomy, all of the cool buzzwords, right? You can dine out for weeks on the cool stuff you've been doing. How do you see this question of the AI opportunity?
Yeah, we started with using AI to actually find all the buzzwords for how to create a cool company.
Exactly, and to get the funding rounds,
exactly.
Right? Exactly. You ticked all the boxes.
Exactly. Now, all jokes aside, I think that I see AI as a toolbox. It's like when we invented the steam box, or steam engine. It had literally the potential to industrialize the entire world. AI is a little bit the same. It's the first digital tool that can apply to completely change the way we're working, and in a way, first tool that we have to optimize the digital world. Previously, we have been utilizing digitalization to apply make the world digital. Now we literally have the steam engine that can propel the entire industry forward. And I think that's where it's also so hard to predict exactly how it could be utilized. But in our industry, we use digital, electric, and autonomous. And what's fascinating with these three technologies is when combined, the more powerful they are by themselves. Mm-hmm. Because if you want to, for instance, digitalize, if you want to go electric for heavy-duty freight, you can't do that without digitalize it. And if you make it autonomous, it's actually a superior business case total. But none of that is doable without digitalization and tools like AI to enable the speed of transitions that are required to make these things happen.
What would you like to see as change in the way that we think about AI, based on your assessment there?
Really, like what already been said here, because it's a continuation of digitalization. It's still the predictional models that's based on the underlying data. That means that if there is no quality of the data, it's no business case what's actually going to be achieved. I think that the physical world will be quite unchanged. Because even if you digitalize a factory, doesn't necessarily mean that you become more efficient.
Yep.
It's what you utilize it for that creates the wealth.
Right.
And that's the same for me, with AI as well.
Great. We're going to pick up on that point too, I'm sure, because I heard some comments from our fellow speakers. Simon, coming to you. Your company consults widely with the leading Fortune 1000 companies. So you have an inside perspective on what the C-suite is thinking. When I hear analyst calls, the quarterly results calls that CEOs and CFOs give, this is what we do, journalists at The Economist. We read the transcript. This is our bedtime reading. A few years ago, you couldn't get by without seeing mentions of ESG, for example. Right. Now those are dropped off dramatically, and instead you hear AI. Every company talks about the AI strategy, AI this, AI that. Give us a reality check. What are you finding when you look under the hood? What's actually going on?
Well, thank you, Vijay. And as you say, we have the privilege at AlixPartners as having a front row seat sitting with our clients as they look at their biggest opportunities and their biggest challenges. But one insight I'd give you is that in the 2024 budgeting round, the AI and generative AI occupies about 80% of boardroom discussion and strategy meetings. It occupies about 3 to 4% of their budget line items on cost. And so the amount of thinking time that's going into this is huge. The amount of budget dollars being applied to it are relatively small. Why is that? Well, it's because people understand that generative AI is going to disrupt every company in every industry and every geography. They just don't know quite what it'll mean for them and their company. Now, what we're seeing is that people are leaning into the efficiency plays that AI provide, and we heard earlier from Schneider exactly some of the ways that can be done. So whether it's the efficiency of supply chain or the efficiency of deployment of labor or the efficiency, for instance, of pricing models if you're in consumer products or retail, people are leaning into that because they can see how to do it.
That's a low-hanging fruit, right?
It's low-hanging fruit. What they can't see yet is how AI can drive revenue growth generally. And that's why people are holding back in terms of deciding how to apply their investment dollars.
Just to push ahead on that a little bit further, surely the efficiency plays themselves can show quick payback, right? Presumably that's one way to show additional revenues, even if you're not creating entirely new business lines.
Right.
Are we seeing that yet or not yet?
Yes, and we've all read the examples of efficiency of call centers, the efficiency of business modeling, and those efficiencies are now well documented and obvious. It's just we haven't seen how to drive revenue growth. Not just important, by the way, to drive company performance, but important in terms of dealing with societal issues, growth in economies. You know, with the major economies of the world actually having a shrinking labor force, unless AI can generate efficiencies, how are economies going to grow? And I do think, by the way, that one of our insights is that the gains are going to be through the fusion of artificial intelligence and human capital. So it's going to be the combination of those. That's why I think Microsoft was so smart calling their product Copilot. I wonder actually whether we should have badged artificial intelligence augmented intelligence.
Right.
It's going to be the fusion of human capital and artificial intelligence that produces much of these gains.
So that raises a very interesting prospect. If we begin to see, I hope it becomes the vision of augmentation that you're talking about, but at least in the first instance, the efficiency will lead to headcounts being reduced, for example, as technology substitutes for humans. We know historically, throughout history, new technologies that have this kind of disruptive effect, in the long run, more wealth is created, potential jobs are created in new, higher value areas. We know that's a long run story. The challenge with AI, it is posited, is that the change is happening much more quickly this time, that the ability of societies to respond at the pace, the human pace of response is slower than the pace at which technology is advancing. If I may come to you, Minister, on this question, because you not only think about the technology, you have a mandate also for the people of your country and the jobs. When you encourage all those efficiency investments and productivity gains, how did that work out in the population at large or amongst your fellow ministers who think about employment, for example?
I don't see a major disruption to employment because, as you said, there would be new industries coming up, while AI will replace, some of the lower value jobs. Some of the higher value jobs will be created as a result.
That's the theory. Are you finding this in practice since you've been pursuing this for some time?
Well, we haven't seen AI being implemented in full scale in practice yet.
So it's early days for you?
It's early days. And I think for everybody, but when we look at, for example, industry, AI will play an important part in industry. But most of factories, or many factories, are already automated. So the high-value jobs we foresee in industry specifically will remain. The major impact is possibly going to happen in the service sort of industries. But as I said, we feel confident that there would be new emerging industries which will come up and create, as a result of the growth in the global economy, of course, new sectors, new industries will create new opportunities and new jobs. So definitely there will be a shift.
Does someone else want to jump in on this particular question about the human impact of the pace of change? Yes. Jean-Pascal.
I think AI is actually solving one of the issues that we have today, which is the speed of deploying things. I'm speaking about the energy equation, where 1 year ago in one panel, I think in Versailles, the world needs to go at least twice faster on energy efficiency. What we need are people able to implement and intervene in buildings, in industries, in cities to make it happen.
Right.
When you use AI and you apply it on the chillers, on things, you will get a saving of 20 to 30%. You will be warned of issues before they happen. When at Aramco, we work together to deploy predictive analytics on 2,500 rotating machines, soon to be 10,000. That means we are putting on the monitoring for uptime, avoiding breakdown, outages, accidents, but we are also allowing people to intervene much faster or much more precisely on things. That's number one.
So predictive maintenance, but the next generation of it?
Yeah, no, the existing generation of it and working on the next, but that means you avoid tons of outages and potential accidents, which would have huge consequences.
Right.
Thanks to that. We do that on buildings, on chillers, we say that, and so on. Then AI is taking a lot of boring jobs, like visual inspection on production chains, where it's difficult to find operators. Let's not fool ourselves.
Right.
Not many people want to work on the shop floor. Those things are getting automated with a better result, because machines are pretty good at doing those repetitive recognition jobs. So I think we are solving actually a problem of labor shortage. Coding, for instance, automation system is highly facilitated by AI. And today you don't have enough operators to do all the things that you guys are needing on the shop floor. So there is the sort of some jobs are disappearing, but there is the fact that we are resolving a massive problem of competency and labor shortage all around the world.
So that's, I want to come to you, Simon, because you have a global perspective on this. The story I just heard, very exciting story. I wonder if the idea of labor shortages, of substitution, the boring jobs maybe being done by AI is more relevant in developed economies, where in emerging economies where you have a demographic boom in many countries, sub-Saharan Africa, in India, South Asia, whether there are people looking for those factory jobs. And we may see what economists have called a premature deindustrialization, a trend that people are worried about. Right. That is, you can't have the China effect again for India or China. We'll come to you both.
Let me just build on JP's point. Yeah. I think that if you look at any of the major sort of developments, whether it's the wheel or the plow or the printing press or the steam engine or the internet, none of those have resulted in a massive drop-off of employment. So I don't think that AI is going to be the exception. I don't think this will result in mass unemployment. This dystopian view that somehow we'll all be out of a job, I think, is just wrong. I think the labor shortage question is key, because as demographics show a shrinking working population in developed economies, I think this is going to be a way that we can drive growth, notwithstanding that. But your question about developing economies, take India, for instance, now the most populous nation in the world. It's the most digitally enabled nation in the world. Over 95% of the population of India now have digital identities. In Europe, it's about 35. In the US, it's maybe about 34. The point of the story is that a massively growing workforce, but digitally enabled workforce. So I think that actually it's going to be a boost to digitally enabled developing nations rather than an inhibitor. And of course, what we're all seeing in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is just a massive investment going into making sure that many of these opportunities are leading edge.
So there's a potential for leapfrogging if you do the right investments in infrastructure.
There's absolutely a potential for leapfrogging. I think that the short-term issue, which is quite different to the long-term issue, is that much of our current workforce do not have the digital skills to be relevant in a fast-changing marketplace, and that is a challenge. And the responsibility for that upskilling is with the individual, the company, and every government. But in the successive generations that will have those skills, I think we'll find that unemployment will not be an issue.
Great. Robert, you wanted to come in on this?
I think one of the things that make this technology slightly different is that historically, efficiency gains has been done in the labor segments. That means that quite often that I wouldn't say unskilled labor, but that has mostly been where we utilize robotics for and so on. The area we're going into now with AI is had potential to replace a lot of middle-class jobs. It's lawyers, it's computer programmers, it's high skillful, well-paid jobs. So the impact from society's perspective wouldn't be felt not necessarily in the blue-collar labor part, but in the middle-class economy. So in a way, it has the potential, if not used properly, to increase the Piketty effect.
That's, yes, please jump in, Cheryl.
Yes, I want to bring a different perspective other than the efficiency increase.
Sure.
I think in our field, this will really enable unparalleled creativities. I think that's something quite different because right now, as how the discipline is structured, people are so specialized in their own areas, like chemist, a biologist, like a process chemistry, like each have its own discipline. And then it kind of become a barrier for innovation. And then what we see AI, because of the knowledge structure is so different from human, like education, it become a generalist in many disciplines. And then you would enable some of the specialized researchers, or like you would say like the I'll use biologists as an example, have a cohort of chemists and then programmers working for it to enable its ideas. I think that's kind of the beauty of AI that would open up something other than just the labor efficiency aspect of things, but bring some novelties and innovations to the world. Yeah.
That's a very powerful and beautiful idea. We know from the history of innovation that many breakthroughs came because not the expert in the specific subject, but someone with an adjacency.
Exactly.
One or two steps away, comes and looks at a problem orthogonally and has the breakthrough. And so it's interesting if AI can open up that potential that really could be transformative, not just a step change, not linear, but rather a step change increase.
If I can build on that, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I add to that, the things that AI brings to operators, workers, creators, as you say, is huge. I'll take the example of our customers. They have people going on the shop floor of factories, dangerous processes, opening the doors of electrical substation. So the nightmare of anybody, including me, is waking up in the morning and knowing that there is an accident that took place. Now you've got people going around with AR goggle or tablets that tell them before they open a machine or before they approach it, every digital parameter of what is happening, and telling them what to do and what to avoid. The number of accidents that you can avoid with that is huge. Speak about generative AI. We do with our customers digital twin from the design to the build into the operation. Before it was engineers trying to design on its 3D models, and we do shipbuilding, we do refineries, we do chemical plants. Now, generative AI proposes you scenario, proposes you simulation to optimize things, proposes new things that people didn't think about. So I think one of the stakes of AI is actually to democratize AI. So the things we are working on at the moment is low-code, no-code AI, so that everybody can prompt some functionalities, which today is not obvious. You have to call specialists to do it.
Right.
The second thing is use Gen AI to formulate your requests in an intelligible manner. Before you were saying, you were programming things, now you say, tell me if my windmills are working properly today. And you're going to have a report of all this, and it's going to come naturally. On the ultimate goal, which we are already doing, is AI working in parallel of people. You don't want to manage a microgrid, right? To make sure that it's the greenest, the cheapest sort of energy, except exceptions on the AI should call you at that time. But you want it to run naturally. And it's tons of parameters that you have to integrate. Before, we are making causal systems, which were a lot of programmation. Now that works by itself, which frees a lot of time for operators to do the added value things. I think a few elements, but never forget all the other benefits, which are far beyond efficiency, safety of workers, uptime and reliability of your application. When you go in a hospital like here, we work with Salman Habib Hospital, priority is reliability. When you go into a surgery room, you don't care about energy efficiency. You want no outage. Those are things that digitization and AI allow you to ensure.
So both of you have made a great case to keep that open mind about the potential for transformation. I want to come back to a topic that I promised that I would return to. Jean-Pascal, you had previously put on the table the energy consumption of AI and also argued about the efficiency gains, and you argued one would be outweigh the other. I want to give others a chance to weigh in who may have a different perspective. As we know, this is one of the hottest topics. I was recently at the main energy conference in the world in Houston, where this was the top issue, the energy consumption and guzzling of AI. People like Sam Altman, an AI pioneer, is investing in nuclear power. He thinks that's the only long-term solution. But of course, there are big debates about how much more energy will be needed. I know you've thought about this, Robert. What's your perspective on this?
I think that I'm just very glad that also this kind of awareness, because I'm a big believer that AI has a huge potential to be one of the most game-changing tools that we have in society. But if that's going to be fully deployed, it needs to be in parallel. And back to what you said about ESG, for me, the question about the climate change can take the back seat, because if AI becomes the dominant driver in business, then suddenly we're going to miss the opportunity to actually take responsibility for stopping the climate change. And for me, it's just good that we have that discussion where we can actually utilize AI for the energy efficiency gains, and that we actually use this tool to become and create a better society. And that discussion requires, for me, awareness. And if you go back 2-3 years, no one realized the fact that we needed to build a huge data center to generate AI. And now people start to see that's going to cost a lot of energy. And I think that what kind of ships we're going to choose is going to depend on how much the energy they consume. But I just want to be sure that we create a society that is sustainable, because we can't have a literal society where the AI stopped working because the wind is not blowing. That's not a smart way to do it either.
Well, you point me to a question I want to direct to the minister. You happen to be in a part of the world that's blessed with natural resources, both of the hydrocarbon kind, but also wind and solar resources aplenty. We just have to step outside to discover it very quickly. What do you think about this, the energy consumption of AI, and could it be turned to your advantage? Could we see this become a source of advantage for regions like this part of the world because of the access to inexpensive energy, that you become a cluster, and maybe even related industries? We see a new map of industrialization where both with the AI-related industries, but perhaps hydrogen, green hydrogen, other things that are energy intensive might actually begin to come here from other parts of the world.
I think that's already happening. I think, but I think it's an important point to recognize. It's good to have ambitious goals and targets, but we need to look at how we will get there. Of course, investment in AI and cloud computing and new technologies require big amounts of energy. How will we get there is an important question. I think the region, yes, is well placed, not only because of their natural resources, but also because of their progressiveness and their keenness to invest in new technologies and infrastructure. And so I think absolutely it's a kind of an opportunity for I would say the GCC or the GCC region to benefit from the trend towards AI.
Simon, you talk to a lot of industrial companies, including ones that are restructuring.
Right.
There is this discussion, particularly in Germany, about potential deindustrialization or a new map of industrialization that could emerge because of where clean energy is coming up. How seriously should we take that discussion if we zoom ahead a couple of decades? Are we really going to see traditional industries move to where the energies of the future are, or is this something you think fundamentally that's not going to happen, that politics will intervene, won't let it happen?
I think that absolutely energy transition will be key to all agendas. But you mentioned Germany. Germany, of course, is comprehensively being reimagined industrially. The automotive industry, which has been core to the German industrial machine, is being recreated on the back of transition to electric vehicles, autonomous driving. Not maybe a transition happening as quickly as people thought, but it's happening. What we're finding from our client work is that the winners in AI are the people who have the best data, not the people that have access to the best large language models. And so interestingly, in 2023, $150 billion was spent developing large language models, and that there are now quite a number of first-class models. But the people with the best data are going to be the winners. So you think about what that means in financial services, think about what that means in healthcare, not just what it means in automotive and industrial nations. I think as people understand how to deploy their data for commercial advantage and then work out what the consequent impact is on energy consumption and how they set it up for success is going to be at the core of those discussions.
That's very interesting. The old adage about the gold rush in California, the miner 49ers they were called, was the only people who made money for sure were those who sold the pickaxes to the miners, right? But I wonder, in this case, maybe we should flip that analogy. These AI tools are the pickaxes. We're focusing on the companies making them, but the money is still where the gold is, so which is the data.
Interestingly enough, if you look at Hewlett-Packard, for instance, which had a recreation of its own, or look at Dell, which has had a massive recreation of its own, their biggest opportunity may yet be coming, because actually the infrastructure to support all of this analysis and data storage and processing is going to be where a lot of the money is going to be made. They may be the new pickaxes.
There we go. I'm going to turn to the audience if we have time for a quick question or two. Anybody want to jump into the breach with a challenge or a question for our experts? If so, let us know. We have microphone runners who will come around. I apologize, I can't see people behind me. But if not, I want to put one thought while we're waiting for any potential questions from the floor, and that is that counter-argument to the energy-intensive narrative, right? That in fact, because of the efficiency opportunities, the innovation opportunities, but also when we actually look at early forecasts of the internet, if we go back a couple of decades, there were respectable forecasters who said it's a few percentage of global energy now, but this is going to be 20%, 50%. The entire economy will be taken over by the energy consumed by all these newfangled internet computer things. Of course, they were wrong. It's not because the internet didn't proliferate, it's because, of course, there was a vast resource of efficiency that came to how we computed, and that it isn't a static resource. Nowadays, it's being discussed as Jensen's law, right, in terms of the ability for the chips themselves to become more efficient, but the ways we organize our searches can be more efficient. So I want to put the challenge to my experts here that, in fact, we will find a replication of what happened with initially with the internet itself, that yes, of course, there'll be some initial disruptions and need for additional energy, but especially because the big tech companies that are pioneers in this area have committed to net zero emissions, and they've been pioneers in promoting power purchase agreements and so on for green energy, that they're actually creating the conditions for a clean energy revolution and efficiency revolution, that they could kickstart a couple of other ancillary areas, not directly related to AI, but actually that could have very positive and pleasing effects in energy, in climate, and sustainability. What do people think of that? Am I too Pollyannish? Am I too hopeful?
Can we put some simple figures?
Sure.
In that?
Sure.
The whole of IT industry represents 2% of the whole energy consumption. Yeah. The application of digital on any process, smart buildings, smart homes, smart manufacturing, smart city, brings, in average, from what we can see, and we help our customers save 100 million tons a year, brings 20 to 30% of energy efficiency. So 2%. On the worst projections say it might double, which is certainly exaggerated. We think it's going to go 2 to 3, on bringing 20 to 30% savings on 98% of the consumption. So I think what you are seeing is a technology that disrupts completely the old way of doing and brings a higher level of efficiency. On the top of it, you're right, the hyperscalers and the data center operators are the most active today to look for green energy. And they leverage a resource they have in data centers, which are batteries also.
Right.
Because to support the process in the data center, you have storage. And you can use that to manage the volatility and the intermittency of energy. So that it's never one technology alone, it's multiple technology. And I leave you with that next thought.
Very brief.
Is that as we get to the cloud, the next stage is AI on the edge, on your phone, on every machine, because if you do that there, it's faster, less latency, data remains here, and energy consumption can be divided by a huge factor. So just the beginning also of the architecture.
Jean-Pascal, thank you. You get the last word. You brought us to the vision of ubiquitous edge computing, energy light, massive potential gains. And that's a terrific vision. Now, it's a robust conversation. We, of course, did not glide over the challenges, whether it's a culture, the governmental challenges, as well as having to do with organizational culture and committing resources to it, and the data openness. So there's challenges aplenty, but I think you'll agree our experts gave us a very insightful and deep look into the potential for opportunities for industry. Please give me a round of applause for my experts. Thank you all very much. And we thank you for joining us. If you're to tweet about this, please use #SpecialMeeting24.